Okay, folks. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. All right. I do not know how successful I'm going to be able to be tonight because I did not get very much sleep at all last night, maybe 3 hours. So, but we've got some figures here. We've got some of my old Germans that I have reworked the basing to redo them and have them look in a more modern fashion than how these looked in the mid-90s. So let's start off with working on that. Hey Glenn, welcome back. Let's get rid of some of this stupid paint off here. Let's put it that way. And this is just because of painting other stuff on here. So we're just going to take this dry acrylic paint and put some hand sanitizer on there, and then look at this. Oh, this comes right off. Yeah, we had game night last night, and I stayed way too late. Typical. We're actually done about 10:15, and I stayed and talked till about almost 1. So, hey, it is part of gaming, socializing, so. All right. Now, we got a little bit better purchase on here. So we're going to use the chocolate brown as the base, and I'm just going to, I had to buy a new bottle of chocolate brown, and yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing that it took decades of me painting before I found it. You know, most discoveries were made by accident. You know, kind of like in that commercial, the whole Reese's peanut butter cup, right? Oh, we got to really mix this thing up. This has got a lot of red in it. Well, you know, the funny thing is that, you know, enamels, oh, I didn't realize I didn't put any headgear. I don't have anything in my hair. So before I look like Krusty the Clown, let's fix that. Be all like, all right. Let's get a brush that we have some confidence in. And we're going to attempt to paint around the label and not get any on the label. If I do, I'll just print out more, you know. Hey, Justin, welcome back. It should be relatively easy to do. We just got to go along the bottom. We used to just paint these in green. I didn't even paint them in brown. We paint them in green, and then we would dip them in green flock. Well, that looks like crap by today's standards. That's no good. Got a nail polish shaker, works pretty good. Yeah, this one is just the first time I used it. I don't really have much of a problem with these paints. It's not like they're the old Pactra paints. Remember them? Remember those old things? What a piece of crap. That's probably the worst paint I was aware of. I'm sure they make some other ones, but growing up, that was the poor man's testers. You get them like at Kmart for like 39 cents or something like that. Just real garbage stuff. Where have I been? I've been here. Last week has been very difficult because of graduations and all kinds of stuff. Just my daughter's taken over the whole week, so I didn't get a chance. I did get a chance to paint on Sunday, but that was about it. So we'll start going back to normal here. And I got boxes and I got my labels printed out before I went online here, and I'm ready to ship my stuff to Noble Knight. So, testers' paint suck, and the Pactors were worse. But the paint is still better than the testers' brushes. Those testers' brushes are just like horrible. Now the Testors Model Master stuff, I thought was pretty good paint. But, you know, when Rust-Oleum took over that company, they discontinued them. They kept all the shitty ones. It had great results with Testors enamels in the mid-90s. The Model Master enamels were just fine. The sealing wasn't great. Like when you went and used the paint and you put it away and you'd come back and parts of it would be like half dried because it didn't have a good sealing around the... Oh, you're going to get all uppity and fall down? But other than that, the first paint that I used to base black, prime and black, was Testors Model Master Acryl. So it was a water cleanup, thick acrylic enamel, I think. And I was pretty happy with it. You saw that I watched the idiotic video. What did I think about it? Oh man, I talked about it at length on Saturday, but you're not on here. When I see something like that, the very first thing I think of is, before anything else, and this goes for everything, you know, I have a problem. I'd like to punch somebody in the nose, let's put it this way, when they denounce Nazis, and I'm all for denouncing Nazis and not denouncing other totalitarian things. Notice that they didn't mention they had any problem with people playing Soviets. They specifically omitted it. And they always do that, you know. And I'm not a Nazi sympathizer by any stretch of the imagination, but the other assholes are never mentioned. Almost like it's okay to play they don't have a problem with people playing other totalitarian regimes that kill people equally, regardless of the color of their skin. But I don't want to. The people that did respond videos, they were way too nice. You know, I'm not going to make a response video. I don't want to make controversial stuff, although it's really not controversial. They're the ones being controversial. And some people mentioned that they may have done it on purpose to try to get more views, but they got a lot of subscribers. They don't really need more views. And honestly, the stand they took is very likely to cause them people lose views than grab them. Although they did have like 6,500 likes, but they got to have more people that dislike that, you know. Hey, studio, welcome. I'll play anybody. You know, I don't care. But I like their position was that nobody wanted to play the Germans. Historically, when you bring up a World War II game, most people want to play the Germans because they got cool toys. You know, they got cool uniforms, they got cool equipment. Yes, they're horrible people, and it's a good thing that they didn't win. But you know, I like the one response video where the one guy basically had. It was a relatively long video. It was like 15 minutes. He played like footage of like Panzer IIIs being assembled. It was actually some. The videos were kind of cool. I wish they had them for other vehicles as well. You know, American tanks, British tanks. It's kind of cool, the manufacturing thing. But I find it hard to believe that there's people like that in this world, and if there are, I don't want to play with them. You know, they got way too thin skin. If they're being honest, they've got way too much thin skin. And people like that, people that had that kind of attitude, pretty much kept their mouth shut when the Soviet Union was still around. It's like all of a sudden the Soviet Union falls, and it's like, I don't know, these people get emboldened to be like, oh, I live in the most horrible country in the world. And, it's not perfect, but if you don't like freedom, go live somewhere where they don't have as much. From what I heard, he cheated on his significant other. Yep, that's a no-go. I have a very low tolerance for people that do that. Well, she was pregnant and then kicked her and their babies out and pays the bare minimum support. Bragged about it on Twitter. Yeah. Not exactly a way to be a man, is he? Maybe it's a fantasy game. You guys have played a lot of fantasy gamers. Is that more common? I have never come across historical gamers that they're like, well, I'm not going to play the Confederates because something or another. I mean, if I have to play American Civil War, God help me. I want to play Confederates because you have more fun doing the accent. You sound like a damn redneck all day long in the whole game. It'd be fun. That'd be the only reason. Maybe to be, you know what? What it sounds like? It actually sounds like the people. I don't know if Rick's on here. How many people we got on here? 3? Maybe not Rick. Rick's on here, but I'll bring it on later. Rick has this thing where people like to play. He's got a fantasy group of people that play, and there's nothing wrong with playing fantasy games. It's just not my preference. But his people, and he says it all the time. They hate being human. I guess there's some people that are just embarrassed of being a human being. But when I was growing up, that didn't exist. Or those people were just they knew better than to open their mouth, I guess. But there's a guy that that has a YouTube channel, and I'm a fan of his YouTube channel because it has kind of a new take on military stuff. He does some political stuff as well. I'm not really interested in that. I don't want to partake in political stuff. So, but I like it, and he supposedly gets accused a lot for not caving in to certain viewpoints, and he's I feel like he's self-tortured himself to the point where he feels he has to explain everything. And if you, I mean, why? Some people just aren't worth explaining things to. There's no way of changing their mind. They're either wrong in the head or they're doing it nefariously to be a troll. So just, moderate all your comments and move on, See, non-historical gamers have a problem understanding historical gaming because they don't know or like history. They all come with ignorant mindset and think they know it all. Yeah. I just don't understand how you couldn't find some history interesting. I mean, I get it. You don't like World War II stuff. Okay, cool. You don't like Roman stuff. Okay, whatever. There's got to be something in history that you could find interesting. I don't know. But I'm glad I've never played with folks like that because, and one guy was saying that he never encounters people like that in the real world. Otherwise, he'd say something to them. D&D removed the half-elves because you are racist if you play them. You are a racist if you play a half-elf. Okay. Wouldn't you be a racist if you didn't play them? Like you wouldn't want races to mix? That would make more sense. Glenn, Wizard of the Coast D&D isn't actually Dungeons and Dragons. I jokingly call it their game Dungeons and Superheroes. They also removed racial abilities because it was racist. Let's just go back to playing the original D&D, right? Why don't you just play like Keep on the Borderlands and stuff like that? The stuff that I played when I was 13 years old. People need to get a life, man. Studio, does stuff like that happen in Malaysia, or is it just stupid people of European descent that are all worried about that now? Have not played 35 years. That's about as long as I've played as well. Right? I think I played when I was 14, so that would be more than 35 years. I actually have the Basic Expert Companion Master Immortal box sets in the form of rules cyclopedia. I had a copy of Fiend Folio. Remember the old Fiend Folio? And it had a smell in it that would never go away. And it wasn't a bad smell. It was like, it wasn't a good smell. It was like a chemical smell, almost like of the book binding. For some reason, it just smelled weird, always. You have the woke here in Malaysia too. Yeah, you can't play Brits. If you play Napoleonic Brits, you're being. Come on, man. And I'm a firm believer that people should be judged by the standards of their time. I really do. So, and I get it that things change, and if we get teleported back to the 1700s, we would not behave the way most people would behave back then. But anytime they bring up, Nazis bad, well, of course the Nazis are bad. They never, it's like they're like they're on this pedestal all by themselves. And there's nobody that even comes close. And you never mention the Soviets. The Soviets, who, by the way, made a deal with the Nazis to backstab the Poles, amongst other nations. But somehow they're forgiven. You feel like the basic D&D is the best version. Well, I really haven't played the D20 stuff. It is kind of clunky, I think, that if you're using different kind of dice. I am not a fan of the D4. It is just clunky to pick up. And I really don't like the D8 either. So then at that point, what are you left with? A D20, a D10, which is a D20 is just a more detailed D10, isn't it? And a D6. I always thought, even when I was a kid, I always thought the one thing that was strange about D&D is that experience was tied in with gold. It'd be like, you could be like illiterate and you find like a huge pile of gold and you're like, all of a sudden you're like wise. Like, you just went up like 4 levels. Chairman Mao, yeah. Screw that guy. Screw totalitarians. All of them, every one of them. Every damn one of them. You can still be a nice person and play the communists, but you can't play Nazis because you're up to no good. No, and I understand some people that were in the Wehrmacht weren't. They didn't want to be there, and they just kind of made the best of the situation. But I don't know that that's a majority, and it's certainly not a majority in the SS because you get down to it, they're into it more than just conquering stuff. There's some liquidation going on in their playbook. This might end up being more trouble than it's worth. But I don't really have a way to print these labels here. So I want to try to reuse them if I can, because it's going to save a step in the whole process. But, I'm a pretty honest person from the standpoint, if somebody makes a video, I take it at their word that they're being honest about it. Why would you make a dishonest video? I mean, I guess people do that, but that's just not really my playbook. It's too complicated to be somebody pretend to be somebody that you're not. Maybe some people don't have challenging jobs and they're bored all day long, but yeah, I don't have time or energy for that crap. I guess that is a proper use of the terminology, that terminology that I don't like to use, that it is in, seems to be in vogue these days. That silly terminology calling people that are out to do harm as bad actors. No, a bad actor would be somebody who makes a video and pretends to be a certain way in the video, and then in real life they're actually the opposite. They're a bad actor. Literally. There's another video that I saw today that I actually commented on, but not for the reasons that the video was made. Not for the kind of, I don't think the video was controversial, but a lot of the responses were. And it was a video that was put together just today by none other than Little Wars. And it was a video that featured David Glantz, who I have met before. He came to, I want to say, our con in Orlando twice, and he spoke. He's a author of, I think the Eastern Front is pretty much all he does. But he served in the Cold War in the intelligence field, I believe, and he was trying to dissect a lot of the stuff from the Soviet sources and that kind of stuff. And he does kind of a little promo. It sounds like they're going to do an interview with him or something like that, or feature him in one of the Little Wars games. And it's a 7 or 8 minute long video, if I remember correctly. I watched it at lunch, and the comments are really what caught me kind of by surprise. That they had a lot of people, they had several people that commented on the terminology that he used when he was talking about the current war in Ukraine. And it was a video that I think what they were trying to tie into that was the World War II area of the Donbass region, and what's going on there now. And the terminology that he used, people were like saying, oh, that means he used that term, which means he's Putin's puppet. And I mean, people are just like ready to pounce on stuff. And there's a lot of people out there that are just looking for a fight. They must not have anything to do looking for a fight. And check that video out and the comments that are on there. And it wasn't just one guy being jumpy. There was several people being jumpy. And that's kind of unusual because Little Wars, I don't think, has any controversial material. And I don't think that video was controversial. He just called it, he was talking about, going into Ukraine, special military action. Supposedly, it was because he was doing it tongue in cheek is what they put on there, using Putin's words. And then 4 or 5 or 6 or maybe even more than that, people just jumped on board and they were ready to to defend their honor or whatever because of that. And it's like, man, you guys need to get a hobby, But there's a lot of folks with nothing on their palate. They need a hobby to chill out. They're just waiting there for a fight. Keyboard commandos. Oh, you weren't listening? All right, short version. Little Wars put out a video today. It featured David Glantz, who's an author of Eastern Front stuff, and to do the tie-in of something that they're coming in about Ukraine or something like that. And David Glantz, in an interview that he does, he mentioned this terminology that likes to be kicked around. Supposedly, when people hear it, they oh, well, he's supporting Russia against Ukraine, and people went crazy. People just went crazy. You shouldn't jump to conclusions. If somebody says, hey, I support this or support that, they come out and tell you, then you can take their word for it. But semantics, you know, you stepped away to get something to eat. Yeah, the world falls apart, man, when you feed yourself, man. You need to do that. When the whole war in Ukraine thing started, I was like, okay, I was watching footage all the time. Until like the third day in, where they had that island where everybody supposedly surrendered. They basically told them, hey, you need to get off this island or we're going to kill you. And they basically gave them a bastards of Bastogne answer of, go, F your mother. We're not going to. And they supposedly killed them. You hear about them for about a week. And then a week later, oh, they didn't kill anybody. It was a misunderstanding or whatever. That's when I stopped listening to that war. I don't care what happens there. I don't support anybody, but I'm not going to fall for manipulations that if you're listening to manipulated stuff, like why even bother, trying to get you all riled up. You're painting the pike and shot epic stuff today, so my replies are slow. No worries. Is that in 12 and a half or 13 and a half millimeter as well? Is that stuff that in the same scale that the black powder stuff is? I think it's black powder. You know what I'm talking about, the ACW stuff, American Civil War stuff that Warlord games came in that funky scale. Is it the same scale? I hope so, because if they keep creating even more scales, no, it's 11 and 3/4 or something like that. 13.5. Okay, well at least they're being consistent. And I don't necessarily think 13.5 is a bad scale. If they're the only ones making it and they go under, and you're left with a half-painted army and no Karas or something like that for whatever you're doing, that could be a problem. What's the pike and shot stuff focus on? Is it mainly English Civil War? I would think it would be, or is it 30 Years' War? Like the minis. And Napoleon Ice. Okay. Hope to do Hail Caesar this scale. Yeah, sounds cool to me too. I mean, I won't buy any, but I'd like to see some. We played a big game of DBN yesterday, really big. Borodino. It was very big and it was very tight. And I'm actually okay with DBN because I'm not a Napoleonic player. There's no way I would. Let's put it this way. I prefer DBN for Napoleonics than Flames of War or Rapid Fire for World War II. So, Marcus, you've been painting, so it's quiet. Hope everyone's doing well. Yep. Yes, I am. We're doing some refurb on these Nazi bastards. I got lots of Germans to paint, but I might as well get the old guys up to speed. Make the basing look better. Let's get the smaller brush. Get in here and do that. From Confederates ACW diorama, not my typicals. You know, I just finished them up tonight. So tomorrow, back to World War II. You're struggling with your 15 millimeter Confederates. Just too many colors to be used on them. Well, I'd have a hard time painting American Civil War stuff. So. It's a good thing you don't have stuff that you hate painting, because you know if I had like say a bunch of like Korean War figures or something like that, I'm not finishing them. Of course, why would I have Korean War figures? You know, it's not really a conflict that interests me. Not dissing the veterans, just saying it's just not something that I'm really interested in reading more about or partaking in on a tabletop game. It was a lot of blue. They did they have any different kind of pants, or was that the same color kind of pants? Same color pants. Got to do something that's different to make them stand out a little bit. Otherwise, you just turn into blobs. "54th Mass." Are those Chamberlain's guys on Little Round Top? I'm guessing they are. "54th Mass" were the first colored regiment. Okay. 20th Maine. Well, it starts with an M and it's up there in the Northeast. Are you still allowed to call them colored regiments? Just saying. You painted that far. My video looks so much better when I put the flags on. Yeah, flags are cool. Unless you got flags you don't care for. Any periods that you guys don't care for the flags? Is there any period you're like, man, these flags suck for these guys? All right, I need to go get a beverage while that dries. And that's the first three. The first three refurbs. I will be right back. Let's see. I don't know. Tell me, I like to fly as uniform in various armies for age of musketry. You make your ACW diorama video. I like to view it. I've spoken to lots of people of color. And I mean, obviously, it depends probably on who you talk to. But they not a fan of the hyphenation thing. I don't hyphenate. I don't think the hyphenation thing is I would never. My parents would not have considered themselves so and so dash Americans. You know, you're Americans. It just kind of. But none of the people of color I've talked to, none of them mind being called black. There's nothing bad about it. If you're playing a board game and black is one of the colors you can be, people are scrambling to play black. It's a cool color. Everybody likes to play black. It goes with everything. Okay. So I did watch a video the other day. I don't think I've got a chance to comment on it since. But there's that whole that Disney Star Wars hotel going out of business, supposedly closing. And I'm like, all right, somebody's certainly done a video on this. When I heard they were doing it, when they were making the hotel, I'm like, that's pretty cool. It's going to be like the Animal Kingdom Lodge or the Contemporary, or just a theme hotel with all that kind of stuff. Not, weird cosplayers all the time, I had no idea it was going to be that. And I didn't think it was going to be based on the new universe. I thought it was going to be based on the old movies. Now, after watching this guy who did like pretty thorough 45-minute video on it, I don't think it's badly done. I just don't think it's a good value. It's something that if you could afford it, you'd do it once. And I would think you'd walk away saying, man, this just was not a good value. Just go to a cosplay convention. I thought it was going to be like one of those other hotels, just had Star Wars themed stuff, not like, not an attraction in and of itself. But, the price, who can afford that kind of stuff? You're cutting a lot of people out of that. And, it's probably so expensive because you're not making it a hotel, you're making it a whole experience. There is I'm sure some people enjoy it, but I watched the video and I'm like, man, if I had paid that kind of money for this, that would not be a good value in my book. I mentioned it last night to the guys, and one of them was saying, man, you got to be a really big Star Wars fan. I'm like, you don't have to be a really big Star Wars fan. You got to be like a really big, like, nerd burglar cosplayer. That's just extreme to be, a method actor. You're basically, you get recruited to be a method actor for 2 days, This is another color I'm going to have to replace soon is field drab. Going through a lot of that. And the first thing I thought of was they'd probably have people on there that It's not a diorama. It's a free frame from War Games Illustrated. What I painted. Oh, okay, cool. Speaking of Star Wars, I'm halfway through the Hutt Gambit, and it's really good so far. Lando and Chewie making their first appearances in the Star Wars expanded universe. The king of the nerd burglars. You don't vote for a king. You get anointed. Anointed. I don't think Rick's a nerd burglar. Guys that can't turn shit off, you know? Go play a role-playing game, but don't, dress up like a elf and then walk around, going to Burger King and shit like that, Like, turn that shit off, Now, you can do whatever you want, but we're going to look at you funny. Yes. One of the things I like the most about Studio's channel is I just like listening to him. He's so calming. And I don't mean that in a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. It's just, he's very, it's almost meditational. There's another person I subscribe to that's kind of the same way. They're just very, they're calming listening to him. And I got another guy that I listen to, and he's got really good content, but I don't know what it is about where his mind, and I've told him before, I said, I can't understand you because your microphone just isn't loud enough. Even if I put headphones on, I'm only understanding half of what the person's saying. I don't know if they've got their volume capture really, really low or something, but these days not so calming. Ooh, there's unexpected excitement on the Wolf Studio. I'll have to go check it out. Did you see Rick's comment about Panera Bread? I told him it was my master plan coming to fruition just to annoy him. Got a kick out of it. No, I didn't. What happened with Panera Bread? Okay, so here's my Panera story. You ready? I'm not a big fan of Panera. It's not the worst place to eat, but it's nothing to brag about, in my opinion. So there was this exchange student that goes to my daughter's school. Of course, my daughter graduated, so she doesn't go to the school anymore either. Neither does the exchange student. So they're visiting from another country. So of course, the very first thing I need to ask them, I had to go pick her up to bring her to she doesn't have transportation, so it's like, hey, she was going to go with us to the graduation ceremony. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go pick her up. And of course, my chance to interrogate her, and I mean that lightly. First thing I said, what do you like the best about the United States? And of course, I have to follow it up with, what you like the least. And what really surprised me is that they said what the best thing about the United States is the macaroni and cheese from Panera. And I'm like, if you're impressed by the food in Panera, you have not eaten at too many places. Person was taking his order, punched out and left in the middle of his order, and he was left standing there twiddling his thumbs. Oh, yeah, I think I do remember him saying something like that, but it didn't really register. It must have happened at a busy time or something like that. It could happen at any time, It could happen at any time. Up and quit. I don't understand that people that quit and they don't have another job lined up. Like, that's it. I'm out of here. Where are you going to sleep tonight? I don't know. You really showed them. Yeah, not a huge fan of Panera. And you know, food used to be a lot better 10 years ago. Now, if you said, you know, I really like the bread at, say, Cheesecake Factory or something like that, all right, now we're getting somewhere, you know, or Outback. Me being had to jokingly comment at him, kick out of it. You don't know what a Panera Bread is. So Panera is a chain restaurant that has bakery stuff. So they do sandwiches, soups. They do, I guess they do desserts things too. It's kind of, it has a drive-in. It has a drive-through. But it also has sit down, and it's not a, it's a better environment than say like a fast food restaurant. You know, and they've got soups and sandwiches, and you can mix and match or whatever. That's what it is. It's a chain restaurant. Coffee, yeah, I guess they have coffee as well. I'm not a big fan. It's I mean, it used to be 10 years ago. You'd go out to eat, and less than 5% of the time you didn't have a good meal. And now it's like, man, it's rolling the dice. It's like odds or evens, you know. Which, you know, what it's done is I don't feel like going out to eat anymore. You know, it just, if I want to pay a lot of money and have a bad food and or bad experience, I'm not even gonna go out. You know. Last time the Panera was the one in Oakland and Pittsburgh about 14 years ago. Yeah. What's it look like? Oh, you just Google Panera. Panera. What's it look like? It looks like it kind of looks like a bookstore on the inside, in a way. The carpet and the decor almost looks like Borders, the way Borders used to look. I mean, obviously, no books, but now that I think about it, it reminds me of Borders. The colors, at least the ones we have here in town. Man, I miss that store. Borders. Yeah, they had a lot of books that, you know, for, you know, wargamer stuff. They have carpet, which I think is really weird to have. The bread, you mean? I think it's just like a random, like little, like a mini loaf or something like that. I don't know. I think it's like sourdough. I'm not a fan of sourdough bread. You know, sourdough bread's a little too acidic for my taste. I don't really need excuses to eat more bread. I mean, that's what got me into the condition I'm in. Yeah. It's one of those restaurants. I know you weren't talking about the description of the restaurant. It's one of those restaurants of all the things that they make, they want to, the big brother wants to get in and regulate. I'm surprised that they allow carpet in restaurants. That's just a bad idea. Just a bad idea to have carpets in restaurants. Any place that's going to get like spills and stuff, you know, not good. You want a good flooring for a restaurant, pour a slab, give it some kind of treatment that seals it. Done, right? You can mop it, you know, or need be, you know, with a minimum of cracks, so you don't have stuff that falls into the cracks as much. That's the kind of flooring you want. You don't want a carpet in a restaurant. You dropped about 4 pounds in the last month just from walking. Excellent. And not going to Panera. I can't think of any restaurant that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go there and just balloon up. Things just aren't worth eating like they used to be just 5 years ago. since the pandemic, for sure. You listen to something when you walk? I hope so. Did the math. Every time I go walking, I burn enough calories to drop a third of a pound. Excellent. I was going to exercise today and then I didn't because sometime in the last week, I remember I've got my the left side of my, what would you call it, ankle on the outside is a little sore. And it's not from pushing the clutch in. I remember vaguely walking somewhere, I think it was at work, and I stepped on a rock and my ankle twisted a little bit. I didn't fall or anything, and it's got to be from that. So it's probably going to take a couple more days to. It's just mild discomfort, you know. Listen to an MP3 player, otherwise boring because I walk for nearly 2 hours at a pop. Books on tape or Audible or. I think you said you were getting stuff from the library. They probably have stuff in the library as well. All right. Now Iraqi sand. I don't know what these Germans are doing in Iraq, but here's the Iraqi sand that goes with it. Tendon in my bad knee was grinding into the missing bone. Almost stopped walking because of it. No, that's worse than what I have. I'm being lazy. I had an excuse. Actually, I don't feel it at all if I'm at home. But if I put on shoes, I feel a little bit more. Yeah, the shoes are heavier, and I don't have anything heavy on my feet. It'll go away in a couple days. But it's not enough to like take, Tylenol or anything for it, or that it makes me walk funny or something. But yeah, I'm just like, what could this be? And I'm like, well, yeah, I vaguely remember stepping on a rock. I didn't look like it was a rock. I don't think it was really big, but it was enough that it rotated my ankle. So, I'll be at 110% in 2 days. Must have been winning if they were in Iraq. Had one of the videos that I guess I had missed watching on the Little Wars site was talking about if the Germans would have won the Battle of El Alamein, what would have happened. And people jumped to some pretty big conclusions. But the conclusion that I liked the most that somebody commented on, I think it wasn't them, I think it was one of the commenters that said, Operation Torch was going to happen anyways. And, the next thing you got Operation Torch goes on, and you got all the Germans that are in Egypt trapped. They've got nowhere to go. Waiting for a shipment to be delivered today. Have you heard of War Games Atlantic? I have, and I've seen their conquistadors, and they look pretty cool. It's just not the scale that I do, but they have. I don't think I've ever heard anything bad about them. Although I'm really not in the know as far as how all those different manufacturers stack up with each other, as far as size wise. I'm sure, Perry's might be smaller 28s, which I think is what I've heard, or, and then other ones tend to be bigger. Yeah, what are you getting? 28s, no doubt. War Games Atlantic, not to be confused with Atlantic figures, which were 1/72nd scale figures that were made in soft plastic from France, and they're horrible. Horrible. They're horrible and nondescript. They'll have like, artillery troops and I won't even tell you who they're from. They're just from an imagination. I bought it what if their range, but it's not focused. Their new SAS looks good. Special Air Service. Is it World War II SAS or is it modern SAS? Are they wearing turbans or are they carrying MP5s? I'm going to guess that he's going to answer Napoleonics. I could be wrong. You enjoy the troops that have elephant poo. And I got such a laugh off that video. And your painter had a field day with that. Look out for the poo. Road apples. Actually, with elephants, it'd be road pumpkins. Look out for the road pumpkins. All right, let's get this SS Camo Black. That's what we've been using on the edge of these. It's neither black nor it's the brown. It makes it stand up a little bit nicely. I like that. That turned out. And then, how long have we been on here? An hour and change? Probably going to stop for the night. I'll wait for this to dry nicely before we do with any tufts. This painting makes you happy and the gaming is secondary. That's exactly how I feel. I don't play games for relaxation. That doesn't mean they're stressful. I'm just saying that, if gaming was relaxational, I could play video games. It wouldn't make a difference. It's the painting that is therapeutic for me. All right, so this is Larson, and this is Alderman. I bet that means older man. Yeah, 20 bases if you've got like an army with a lot of options. Medieval French or something like that. They can have they might actually be able to have more than 20 bases. Okay. There we have it. So we'll let these guys dry. And then maybe we'll tough them up in the morning. And that's probably what I'm going to do. Is I'm just going to do a few Germans at a time. Fix them. Redo them. So to look more consistent with the partisans. But thanks for coming by, folks.